Good morning, Big Fish and Ad here from Test Tube Marketing. And today we're going to be talking about content, about consistency, and about using content and content marketing to turn your audience, your prospects into paying customers. And this conversation is kind of coming off the back of a few things. It was Ad's idea. I have to give him credit.
It's my annual good idea.
Yeah.
And it's come really early.
It has come early. That is a problem. You can go home now for the rest of the year. Pop your heating on. So where do you want to kick things off? Because there's kind of three areas we want to talk about. The email I got yesterday, the meeting we had yesterday, and the Ibiza gig. Mm-hmm. Where do you want to start?
Well, I think it's probably a good place to start with just what we mean by content, really, because I think it's funny, I was having this conversation in the gym this morning. In life in general, like, people have got their own opinions about everything, which is fine. We was talking about the fact that I was looking into this fasting thing, and one very qualified expert said categorically you should not do this thing, and then another qualified expert categorically said the exact opposite, and you go, yeah, I don't know what to believe now, so I'm going to have to test it. So I think our version of what we mean when we talk about content is probably good for context, I would say. Mm-hmm. Because what we're not talking about is churning out 20 videos a day on social media and that sort of stuff. I think the stuff that we're doing, I believe, is much more achievable and doable for most people.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think for me, it came from when I started my previous business, just kind of looking at what's the easiest thing, and it was my business partner at the time kind of advised me on this a little bit. What's the easiest thing I can do to grow the business, to get clients and that kind of stuff? I was wearing all the hats then, and this was before we had any employees. We had a couple of freelancers and stuff, and it was a question of what can I do that doesn't take much of my time, but that is the kind of best bang for my buck in terms of the time being invested. And that for us was sending out a couple of 3 emails a week. That was the most effective thing in terms of it wasn't predictable in terms of I couldn't tell you we got this many clients for this many emails that we sent. But what would happen is just by sending emails regularly and consistently putting out content, which was anecdotes and little stories and little lessons and kind of things from my actual life, what I found was that pretty much every week someone would reply and want to have a conversation about becoming a client. And I was terrible at selling then. So not all worst. Yeah. So not all of them would buy, but certainly some of them would. And it probably was more predictable than I gave it credit for. And our focus was very much on growing the list. It was before GDPR, so we didn't have to worry about getting a door broken down and executed by firing squad for emailing the wrong person. We used to just get loads of data. And that worked really well. And I think it's obvious why when we look at know, like, and trust and relationships and that kind of stuff, especially when you're putting out that personal content.
Yeah, I think a good point that you raised, and we spoke about it yesterday as well, and it's a saying from a good friend who's not actually a good friend. We've never met him, but I'm a big fan of Rory Sutherland.
Thought it might be.
And he talks about the obsession with marketers to measure stuff, and just people in general, around business. And the sort of stuff that we're talking about is really hard to measure the tangible results. And he says that what matters, or what you measure, doesn't always matter, and what matters can't always be measured. And I think when we talk about just the consistent emails and stuff like that you just put out there, you just have to trust that because you're doing that, things will happen. And you might not be able to go, well, show me the result of this email. And, you know, we've worked with people that have been obsessed over measuring everything. And it's like, well, we've sent 3 emails and I can't see a result, therefore we're going to stop doing it because it's a waste of time.
Yeah, and it is just hard to track some stuff. We were talking about that yesterday, where I've worked with businesses as well who they're obsessed with tracking every single thing. They're not doing anything with the data, and they spend so long trying to work out how to track it, they forget to do the thing, and the thing was working. And there's just something to be said for sometimes. So you want to track as much as you can. We're big on testing stuff, looking at the data and what have you. If it's going to be that difficult to track something, but you've got a pretty good feeling that doing it is working, and you can kind of a little bit finger in the air, or maybe it's anecdotal, but you can go, yeah, since we've been doing more of that stuff, like sending regular emails, like posting consistently on LinkedIn or Facebook, since we've been doing that, we've been getting more inquiries come through, and a couple of them mention that they read our emails. You can kind of, feels about right. And it was an email I received yesterday from a couple of Irishmen. And
Don't do your accent.
No.
Oh, by the way, before you go on to that, I want to just say that I am not, by any stretch, saying that you shouldn't measure stuff.
I am.
No. Like, there's definitely, you should be able to track when you're doing testing and things like that of different campaigns and different ad sets and all this sort of stuff. You've absolutely got to be able to track stuff, but some of the stuff you can't measure, and that's okay.
Especially campaigns are different, aren't they? I would say. When it comes to stuff like social media and creating content, this kind of stuff, you can track certain metrics like views and engagement and hook
Vanity
rate
metrics as
yeah,
well.
they often are, aren't they? I had an email yesterday from a couple of gents in Ireland who I'd kind of regaled the story of visiting them a few times before, where we'd flown over to Dublin.
Regaled, did you say?
Yeah, that's a word, isn't it?
I've not heard you say that before.
Regaled a story.
Yeah.
Well, I might throw it into my lexicon now. We used to fly over to Dublin, hire a car, drive up into Northern Ireland where they were based, go and have a meeting with them for a couple of 3 hours, go for lunch. And it was really nice where they were. It was kind of, not sure if it was on the coast or there was kind of a shore there and a big lake, or I don't know if it was the sea or a lake, but it was very, very pretty. The sun always shone when we went to the Emerald Isle, and we'd go back via Dublin to Temple Bar. Temple Bar? Yeah.
Never been to
And
Ireland.
have a few pints of Guinness, and it was very, very nice. Live music, that kind of stuff. And so I remembered the gent who reached out fondly for that reason, because of that experience that we'd had. And he said, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but we kind of gave a brief overview of what's happened. They'd sold one of the businesses, kept one of them. It had grown quite significantly. Could you help us with some marketing? And
How long ago was it that you saw him?
yeah, I dug the photo up on my phone. It was March. It was definitely 2020. I think it was March 2020 that we'd gone over there. So 5 years ago. And I was able to say, I do remember very clearly. And I was able to remember a bit of what they did, which I think is useful. And we don't know yet if that's going to turn into paid work or not. Maybe it won't. But he said, I've been getting your emails and really enjoying them. And it's happened a few times. There's other examples of this. People who, Richard from Satora, who we're working with, I'd never heard a peep out of him. Didn't know he was on my email list. Didn't ever reply. Had been kind of in the shadows, I think, for longer. I think he'd been 6 years before he finally reached out and went, hello, yes, I'd like to work with you. I'm ready to work with you now, please. And it doesn't always take that long. But if we hadn't been doing the consistent communication, sending out emails every week, they wouldn't have ever come to us and wanted to speak about their marketing.
Yeah, I think it's just, and this is the thing that puts people off, I think, just from experience. It's the long game, isn't it?
Yeah.
The building the email list, which I know you wrote about Tuesday, about owning your email list. We won't go into that right now. Building an email list, consistently emailing, and not getting anything in return, yet still continuing and still doing it, because that's the discipline. That's the thing that's hard to do. And obviously the creating of it, there's skills in that, in how to do that properly. But it takes something to keep doing something, just trusting that it's going to do something good, but not seeing evidence of it straight away.
Yeah, 100%. And doing it consistently, and even when it's working, some people will stop doing it, won't they? Because we've been guilty of it with other stuff probably, where you do something for a bit and then you get some clients come on board. So then you go, I can stop doing that thing now. And I think we see that a lot. I know when I worked with a chap called Jay Alderton, who had a big Instagram following, and he used to talk all the time about how he'd been posting, I think every day, if not more than once a day, for 7 years or so, to kind of amass his following. And people would say, like, what's your secret? and that was it. Just
Yeah.
consistently doing it
Yeah.
over a long period of time, not doing it consistently for 3 months or doing it consistently for a month and then not for 4 months. You often go on people's websites, don't you? What we see all the time when before we have a call with someone, do a bit of research, jump on the website, and then have some blog posts from June 2023, and then there might be a smattering more in August 24, and there'll be these kind of focused blocks of consistency, but with just huge valleys between them.
Yeah, and I think just that consistency, especially on email, because it's like with social media. Like, I'm definitely not dissing social media, but with social media, things can disappear so fast. But at least an email inbox, it sits there until you either read it or delete it. So you know that it's getting more eyes on it. You own it as well, obviously. It's just.
Do you want to clarify what you mean by you own it? Just
Yeah.
very quickly.
Like I say, you wrote about this. Like when it comes to social media, like if you build up, and there's countless examples of people who've got massive social media followings. And do everything on social on one platform, and they get banned or shadow banned, or they get their account locked out. And these companies, like, you get banned and they don't help you get it back. It's like, see you later, done. And so you are at the behest of these companies that have got your audience, whereas an email list, you own it, and as long as you back it up, no matter what happens to the company where it sits, you can just stick it in another system to email people. So you've always got that security that is your asset that you own. Whereas on social media, you can have 100,000 followers or whatever that looks like, and if they ban you, unlucky, you're starting again from scratch. And some businesses that could absolutely cripple.
And it has.
Yeah, I think what I was going to say is that it's just that salience and being noticeable.
Good word.
Is, thank you, is the key.
Salience meaning salt water. Is that correct?
It's that noticeability. I've just made that up. That's massive.
You're really, it's a real flip of the coin there.
Yeah. Like we had a meeting yesterday with a big flooring company, and
just massive tiles,
just huge floors. And the reason that came about was because it was the owner's birthday last week, and he was with his son, and they were doing coffee making. They were doing a coffee making experience, which I thought you'd love that.
I did think that at the time.
I also thought it could be really quick. It's like, done, experience over.
Yeah, I do think I saw him make a cup of instant coffee when he came in, which did surprise me a little bit.
And he was talking about, like, the son's got a business and the dad's got a business. It's like, very successful, a few million quid. And he basically said, I'm having some difficulties or struggles or challenges with marketing. And the son was like, do you know what? You should speak to Ad. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, I heard off Ad last week, and you should speak to him about marketing because he's consistently there. He's got good experience, all that sort of stuff. Interestingly, like, I had, been communicating and sending stuff out, like emails and stuff like that, and he'd got one of my emails, never responded to it.
A personal email this was, wasn't it? Just not a broadcast email.
Yeah. And it was like he hadn't responded to it. And so you could go, well, that was a waste of time. But then he told his dad, Ad had been in touch, and you've got a marketing problem. And it's that you definitely can't measure. And without that, there is no way that I'd have got a phone call at the end of last week going, hey, can we talk? And, who knows? We might get some business from it. We might not. I'm confident that we will.
Yeah, and it's funny when you said successful, then the business that great in terms of turnover, but also just a business aligned with us really in terms of how they operate.
I mean, because they've got a golf simulator in their office mainly.
But no dartboard, bizarre. Yeah. But that stuff always out. I've had meetings before, and it's along the same line really, where you get there, or before the meeting, the business owner will tell me, every email that you send, I forward around the team and make sure they all read it. And then when you get there and they all, I've had it before. I don't know if you have, where I've had people approach me and go, "Oh, Fish, how are the kids?" Or ask a question about how's the dog, and this kind of stuff. People I don't know, and they know me because they've been reading my email, and they've built a personal relationship with me, a little bit like a stalker, but less creepy. They've built that personal relationship by hearing those stories, by hearing real life stuff from me, by understanding my experiences, but my opinions and that kind of stuff. And when you can weave that in and build relationships, it's less tangible for me than just you get more sales, which you will. It's also it makes it easier, makes it more enjoyable. It kind of gets rid of that awkwardness when someone feels like they know you and they reach out. Who do we speak to? Martin Truman last year. I think I might have I had spoken to him on the phone previously, but not for 4 years. And it didn't feel like that because he'd been receiving both of our emails, and it just greases the slide a little bit, doesn't it?
So we had that meeting last year as well in the custard factory, and we went into, and it was quite a big company, and we were invited into the boardroom for this meeting with the director, some other senior people. They had like a massive screen at the end of the board table with it was my email on. Like,
yeah, terrible taste, those people. They didn't become a client, so.
But it was just like, basically, it circulated this email around the office and gone, we need to communicate like this. And it was a big company. It wasn't like some formally written thing. It was talking about my eggs exploding in the microwave.
In the air fryer, I think.
Oh, that was it. Air fryer. That was it. And it's just those sorts of things that get attention. So, like, how do you do it? Like, what's the best way, especially if you're not doing something at the moment, or you think that the only way that you can create content is by doing something similar to this, which is having all the cameras and having a nice backdrop, or being confident on camera and posting on social media. Like, what's the best way to start?
It's a good question.
Thank you.
It's one I wasn't ready for you to answer. It's one I've had before, and I've probably answered it differently over the years. The way I would always do it for myself is just to start making, like, before you even send an email. I don't know if it's a bit chicken and egg. I make notes when stuff happens, and I have an idea for something that could be an email. I write it down in my notes, because
like what though? Because people are probably going, nothing really happens in my life.
Yeah, because that won't happen. So what's the email? It's a good email I sent recently.
Can't think of any.
Yeah, difficult that, isn't it? Yeah, the way I always do it is to try and tell stories. My structure is called the Seinfeld email, which is basically based off.
Did you name that?
No, I think it's a Dan Kennedy thing, based off a kind of Seinfeld episode in terms of how they're structured. But it would generally be an anecdote segued into a lesson of some sort. I could probably give it a better example of a client email from recently. So we work with a woman called Kirsty Darkins, who teaches people all around investing in commercial property. And her emails, for example, could be, here's what you need to know about commercial property. It could be just information, statistics, updates, that kind of stuff. But people don't engage with that stuff.
A lot of people do that as well, don't they? They just send information.
Yeah, accountants are the fucking worst for it. Just send boring stuff. And I always use them as a bit of a scapegoat, but it's a title they've earned. Whereas with Kirsty, she's out doing stuff all the time. So one thing we've written about recently is that she's selling some of her properties at auction, and she's just talking about what that looks like. She also, there's a belief in her industry that the high street is dead for commercial property, and there's no point buying commercial property on the high street or investing in. And we wrote an email for her, or I did, basically talking around, hey, so I was on the high street the other day, and there's this new place that had opened up. There's a tattoo shop inside a bank, talking around that a little bit. And kind
the
of
bank had closed, to be clear. It wasn't
Correct.
a Lloyd-sponsored
Correct.
tattoo studio.
Because lots of banks have been shutting their branches, and this place had opened up.
And that's why they think the high street's dead, right? Because big like corporations,
institutions, banks and post offices. Actually, we had a few examples of why that isn't the case. And then that lends itself to going, hey, so if you're looking at investing in commercial property and don't be put off from investing on the high street. Often there's kind of a nugget of useful information or an insight in there. I wrote one a few years ago now when Florence was just a baby, actually. And I'd been to the supermarket, and we'd gone away for the night, stayed in a nice hotel, and I'd gone to the supermarket, like an Asda, I think it was. And it was late. It was just before they were shutting, and they had this, I was in the kind of the bread section, and there was just this kind of crowd of people there, and I thought, what the fuck is going on here? Is Mary Berry here or something like that? And I'm stood there waiting, and then these two blokes come wheeling these big trolleys out of, the ones that you kind of stack trays onto, the tall ones, and they've got trays of stuff on there, and they're kind of wheeling these out, and they're shouting, "Get back! Stop! Don't touch them yet!" at people in the crowd who are kind of clamouring to get to these trays. And I thought,
like Black Friday.
Yeah, and I thought, what is happening here?
Bread Friday.
There's probably 20 or 30 people here, kind of clamouring to get to these trays, and they go, "Get back!" shouting at them, and then they've kind of got positioned there, stepped away, and gone, like, "Go for it," or something like that. And people have just fucking dived onto these trays and sort of whipping stuff off. And it was reduced stuff. It was bread that had been reduced to, because I had a look afterwards at the kind of the aftermath. There was fucking profiteroles flying around and stuff. It was like what I imagined Vietnam was like, but sweeter. And when I looked afterwards, some of the stuff was reduced to pennies for like a loaf of bread and that kind of stuff. And so I told this story in the email, and then the kind of segue then was around price positioning and your perception around price. In that, if that's where you spent all your time and you saw that happening, you'd operate under the assumption that nobody had any money, because of course you would. It's experiencing that, witnessing that in real life. However, it was quite a nice hotel we were staying at. If you'd spent all your time at the hotel and saw different people coming in, day out, the hotel fully booked all the time, people spending lots of money on rooms, dinner, the spa, that kind of stuff, you'd go, oh, lots of people have got lots of money. And it was really around not setting your pricing around your own expectations or perceptions and being open-minded. Because oftentimes we speak to people, business owners, more often than not, they'll tell us what they're charging and they'll kind of wince because they think it's a lot. And we'll say, that's way too cheap. Why are you charging so little? That's the kind of content to do. And the way, once you start sending emails, which is story, segue, lesson, advice, tip, whatever it is, then you start to see these stories in real life and start making notes of them. Sorry, that was a bit of a monologue.
It was a bit. Yeah, so I think the key thing is, though, and the two companies that we've met with recently, the flooring company, the company out in Ibiza, like, for them, it's just doing stuff. Like, they've grown really well by word of mouth, which a lot of businesses have, and they know that now they want to expand to scale, and word of mouth isn't going to support that growth, and they want to start doing some more stuff, and they don't know what, and they've got no way to implement it, and they've got no way to execute it. So I think the key thing is just to get going, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, be consistent, commit to someone. Like, we have a commitment with each other that every Tuesday Fish sends an email, every Thursday I send an email, and we've committed that to our email list. So it's expected, and that's a bit of external accountability as well, isn't it? Which forces you to do it, because on occasion, I'm sure you're the same, it's been 10 o'clock at night and the kids have gone to bed and I'm about to go to bed and I'm like, shit, I haven't sent my email. I haven't written my email.
Yeah, I've done it before to see how quickly I can write it. I can do it about 7 minutes in a push. And it's, in terms of getting going, I was thinking about Beth, who used to work for you, because I gave her some advice on upskilling in terms of writing copy. And I suggested I got set up with a domain and a MailChimp account. And I said, just add some people to the list and start emailing it and write to a single person. Don't feel like you're writing to a bunch of people. Write to a single person. Just put one person on the list to start with, if that helps you. But you don't need a list to get started and get set up. If you can get into the habit of sending stuff, everyone's got a list as well. They've got people, if you've got been in business for more than 5 minutes, you've got people who've inquired, you've got customers, you've got suppliers, people, partners who can give you leads, that kind of stuff. Just get everyone in there. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to go wrong. We were reviewing a campaign from July last year, yesterday. And one of the emails there went out, and it's my fault, went out without a body in it of the email, so it's just blank. I think it said copy here, so I knew where to put the copy. And everything, the lights are still on. Nothing went wrong. I don't think we even got a single shitty reply. We sent a funny follow-up email going, oh, fucking hell, that was stupid. And that was it. Nothing bad happened. We haven't been executed or...
I'll tell you what I hate when stuff like that happens, when you're on the receiving end of some, like an email coming to you and it's, you know, missing a link or the body's not there or something, and then you get the follow-up email going, there was a technical this, and you're like, fuck off. Just say, I messed up. Like, that's the worst thing, is just going, oh, the so-and-so system did this, and you're like, no,
the satellite had moved, and that's it, wasn't off. You had it recently.
Just go, hey, look, I fucked up there, SARS.
Yeah.
Here's what was supposed to be there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, anything else to add, or should we wrap that up there?
Probably wrap it up there, I think.
I think so. Hopefully all the cameras are still recording. The lights have stayed on, so that's fantastic news. Thanks very much for joining us if you've made it this far. I am Big Fish.
And I am Ad, and very little compared to you.
I thought you were going to call yourself Adam Ashburn. There's like a little, you know, like a late night TV show sign-off. Like, you've got a touch of the Parkinson about you, haven't you?
The Parkinson?
Yeah.
Not the Parkinsons.
Yeah, only an age, but thanks very much.
Thank you. And if you wanted to see what we do content-wise, just go to testtubemarketing.com and you can opt into our email list there and see our emails.
Perfect.
Lovely. See you later.
Bye. I hope everything is still recording. My fear is that something's died, so that was recorded.